welcome back to the channel. So today I'm really happy to get back to my LT50 project. I've had a few weeks off because I've had a few commitments and stuff, so yeah, really excited to get back onto it. So today I thought I'd go through something really simple. Now I've noticed with this LT50 here quite a bad fuel leak. So basically, if you leave the fuel tap on, or if you turn it off and then put the quad in the garage, if you go back to it a couple of hours later, you've got a pool of petrol on the floor. So and if I actually left the fuel tap on, and it actually emptied the tank onto my workbench. So it's quite a bad fault, so I just thought I'd run you through exactly how to fix that. It's a 5-minute job, and anyone could do it. So let's take a look.
And if you get value from this video, hit the like button and subscribe to support this channel.
Right then, so the culprit is actually the overflow pipe on the bottom of the carb. Now, if I turn on the fuel tap and give the bike a shake, you'll see just underneath the bowl here, there's a little drain pipe. And if I give it a good shake, you'll see if I just touch this little drain pipe on the bottom, you can see my fingers wet there from petrol. So what's actually happening is the float isn't shutting the fuel off enough to stop the bowl from overflowing, which is causing our fuel leak. Now there should be a pipe on this little port at the bottom. You can see there petrol plain as day. Now it was actually dripping out at one point, but it's stopped now, which is typical for this video. But you can see there it's coming into the bowl and then it's leaking out through the overflow on the bottom. Now like I said, there should be a pipe which hangs down underneath the bike, so if you might find that it's actually coming from a pipe that hangs down, but in this case it's just leaking onto the engine. So I'm going to loosen off the clamp that holds the carb in place and just turn the carb so I can get to the bowl. You can see that pipe clear as day now, and you can see now that I've turned it, it's actually draining some of the fuel that's in the bowl. Obviously we're going to take this off, so I'm just going to remove the 3 Phillips screws. Now I have pinched the clamp bolt up a little bit just so to stop it moving, so there we go. If you leave it loose, it'll just move around, so I'm just nipping that up so it stays in one place. So I'm going to remove the 4 screws now to remove the bowl. They're quite easy to get to, just make sure obviously you don't round these, because they could be a real nightmare. So I'm just going to give them a good firm tweak to undo them and then just wind them out. Now this is really simple to do, anyone could do this, so yeah, don't be afraid of it. That's 2 screws, so there's a 3rd one, and it's 1 screw in each corner. So that's number 3, and the last screw. Now obviously when you take this screw out now, the bowl will start to drop off. If you're unlucky or like me, it sticks on, so you've got to give it a pull and then pop it off. There we go. So as you can see, here's our bowl. Now you can see that pipe inside. I will show you it a bit closer later, but yeah, you can see it's all full of petrol, so I'm just going to drain that out onto a rag. Now this is always good just to check this for any sort of sediment. You can see mine's nice and clean, but I've had mine off a few times, so I've cleaned him out in the past. So yeah, it's well worth taking this off to check it. So here's the float. Now basically what happens, as the bowl fills with fuel, this float lifts up and there's a little flap that hits a valve, and the valve stops the fuel. So with it all the way down, it's off the valve, and when it lifts up, so the fuel comes into this pipe to the valve, and then obviously this is basically like an on-off tap. So as it lifts up, it basically shuts off the fuel. So what's basically happening is it's not lifting up enough to cut off the fuel. So what we're going to do, we're going to just basically bend the flap. So if I zoom in a little bit for you by ear, we should be able to see. So there's the flap, and you can see the valve there. So if I lift the valve up and down, you can see that turns the fuel on and off inside the carb. So once once it lifts up, it basically stops the fuel. So and there it is. You can see there now I've just basically turned the fuel on, so if I lift it up it stops, and if I drop down you can see the fuel dripping into the carb. Quite a simple idea really. So as you can see now, my float is hitting the bottom of the carb and not cutting the fuel off completely. What you aim for is just for it to stop before it hits the carburetor, so that you know it's basically stopping the fuel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this flap and I'm just going to bend it out ever so slightly, so to make it a little bit closer to the valve. So that's what I've done there, is just bend the flap ever so slightly, so that obviously the float doesn't quite touch the carb, so that I know that when that bowl fills up with fuel and it lifts this float up, I know it's going to shut the fuel off, which is what it's doing now. And believe it or not, it's that simple. You can play about with it a little bit, you know, to obviously have it shutting off a bit sooner or a bit later. I prefer just to have it, just to bend it enough so that it's, when it's all the way up, when the float stops, the float isn't quite hitting the carb, so you know then it's shutting the fuel off properly. So just to show you the bowl again, you can see here, so there's our port on the bottom where the fuel is coming out, and basically there's a long pipe that goes all the way up just above the bowl. So you can see it there, just it sticks up a couple of mil above, and as it fills, the bowl fills up with fuel, you can see it just, if the float is not cutting the fuel off enough, it'll just overflow that pipe out on the floor. You could also, you know, another symptom of this this float not being bent enough is if you're driving a lot crod along and it's constantly leaking fuel out of the pipe, out of the bottom, then obviously you're getting too much fuel in your bowl and it's splashing out. So it's another thing to keep an eye out for. But mine just had a really bad fuel leak. You could see it was just dripping out all the time. So that's it. So it's all bent and all back together. So we're just going to put the bowl back on. As you can see, I haven't actually really took the carb apart at all. I've just took the bowl off the bottom, which is quite simple. So now we're just going to put the 4 screws back in. With these, you don't want to over tighten them, because if you over tighten them you can struggle to get them back out, and it is part of servicing to clean the bowl out every now and then, so I'm just a good nip. So I'm going to loosen off the clamp screw now and just put the carb back in place. Now what I did was turn it till it touches the casing and then turn it back a little bit just so it doesn't vibrate against it, and nip it up. And that's it, all done. It's that simple. So yeah, I hope this helps, and thanks for watching.
And if you get value from this video, hit the like button and subscribe to support this channel.